Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Rana's Ranch. This time I get to interview the Rana, and that's Rana Goodman, and that's my pill, in case you don't know. That's Partner in Love and Life. So, Rana, welcome to your own show.
Thank you, Dan.
You know what, Rana, we'll go back and forth on a bunch of stuff, but you have now committed to another new program, and that is called
Concerned Neighbors and Friends.
And you know what? The thing that justified it, or how it started, was I know that you've been getting a bunch of telephone calls from people that have problems.
Correct.
Talk a little bit about those individuals.
Yeah, telephone calls and emails, both. Basically what it is, you know how a lot of times you don't really know your neighbor. I mean, I lived next to somebody in a different development once, 18 years, never even met them. But here, because we're walking dogs, we're a senior community, people are out moving around more. A lot of times they'll make friends with a neighbor, chat up with them while they're walking their dogs or what have you, and then suddenly the neighbor vanishes or they don't see them. And they don't know how to check on them.
You know, and the interesting thing is I know that they call you because I guess of the guardianship involvement and someone being missing. But I know you've told them to either call 311 or 911, and that doesn't work. And the reason why is? They
get very intimidated by that. They're afraid that, like if, let's say you're my neighbor and I call 311 or 911, well that's for emergencies only, so 311 would be appropriate. And I say, I haven't seen this man for 2 weeks, can you do a well check? They're afraid if the police go to that home, do a well check, and everything's just fine, that they may get in trouble. So they're very hesitant to do that.
Yeah,
and I'm not hesitant, I'll do it.
I got it. So, I mean, we have this program where, here's the theory, they are to call you, and then you will...
I will then call either Las Vegas or Henderson, whichever is appropriate, and ask for a wellness check.
Yeah. And you know what, and again, it's a lot different than you calling as opposed to John Doe, because I guess when this first happened, you contacted originally Mayor Deborah March.
Yes, I did, and I asked Mayor March who at the city of Henderson would be the appropriate person to call when it doesn't actually concern me and I'm doing it as a favor to somebody else. She suggested that we meet with a specific officer in Henderson who is in charge of a I don't know what they would call it, a unit, squad, whatever, and they will arrange for a wellness check on whoever that is.
And I mean, also, let's give credit, if we can, to Councilwoman Michelle Romeo.
Right.
Because Romero. Because when she was here for our interview, she made it very clear that she wanted to help.
Right.
And again, as you mentioned, she put you in touch with the Henderson Police.
Right, correct.
And let me give the officers their credit. That's Officer Brett Hyde and Sergeant Michael Milani. And what did they tell you to do?
They said call 311, gave us their business card, and said if there was any problem, call them direct, and they will make sure that within 24 hours, if not sooner, an officer would go to whichever home that is and do a check.
You know, it's interesting because once you implemented it, you already had a need for it. Someone else called.
Right. And then we expanded that effort and went out to Las Vegas and met the police officers in the Metro who would do the same thing in the Las Vegas area.
And again, let's give credit to the Las Vegas councilwoman who helped, and that was Victoria
Seaman. She's always been there to help whenever we've needed her.
I mean, she jumped into it with us.
Yes.
And again, let's give the guy the credit. She put us in touch with Lieutenant Zachary Burns, and here's the picture of Zachary Burns. And he was also very helpful.
Yes, very, very much so. And as a matter of fact, within days of our meeting him, I had another person call me and said the same thing, that a neighbor hadn't been seen by anybody in 2 weeks.
Right.
I called, and the same afternoon, they called me back and said, we did a wellness check on this gentleman. He's just fine.
All right.
Not to worry.
So here's the thing. If people who are watching this have a concern or they have a thought that maybe their neighbor is not in the best of shape or disappeared, what do?
Call me.
And how do they go about calling you?
They can call Vegas Voice.
And that phone number's underneath it, which is 702-251-4441, or they can email you at the Vegas Voice.
Rana at thevegasvoice.com. .net, and make sure you put in thevegasvoice.net.
And you can just see the bottom graphic, which hopefully will say Rana at thevegasvoice.net.
Right.
The thing to remember is that the Vegas Voice is here to help. More specifically, Miss Rana is here to help, and that's what she likes to do. And so if you have any concerns about your neighbor, your friends, along those lines, give her a call.
Right. And one other thing that I would like to say too, when I first moved into my home in Sun City Anthem, I had a neighbor down below me that had a little schnauzer, and every day my dog zoomed over to that fence, stuck his head through, and the two of them would be talking, barking at each other, talking. So I went around and I introduced myself to my neighbor, and I said, tell you what, because we're the only ones at the top of the hill at this point in time, if you don't see Zeus every morning talking to your little dog, something's wrong, and I'll do the same if your little dog's not out there. And that worked really well for us for quite some time.
Yes. And again, if you don't want to do that to your neighbor because you don't like him or whatever the situation is, and if you do have a concern, you talk to Rana Goodman, because that's why we started, or she started, the Concerned Friends and Neighbors. So we survived the segment?
We survived the segment, and one more thing I'd like to add about the foundation. How Are You, their program. Foundation Assisting Seniors has had a great program for quite a few years, totally free of charge. You sign up for this program, and every day somebody will call you at the appropriate time and just ask how you are. If you don't answer, then they send an officer to do a wellness check.
And again, if somebody wants this type of information, they can also
call me. I'm happy to give them the number.
There we go. So we did survive.
Yes.
Anyway, I thank you for allowing me to sit in on your segment. And this is Rana Goodman and Dan Roberts for Rana's Rant, and we'll see you again real soon.